The shovel struck something hard, a metallic clank that froze my heart. I stood in my backyard, the morning sun barely cresting over the fence, staring at the glint of gold peeking through the dirt. My brothers, my own flesh and blood, had turned my quiet suburban life into a crime scene without a single word. It started with a knock on my door that morning, sharp and insistent, like the world was about to crack open. I'm Ellen, 42, a high school math teacher who thought her biggest problem was grading algebra tests. The man at my door wore a suit too crisp for our sleepy neighborhood, his badge gleaming with the letters IRS. "Ellen Marie Carter?" he asked, voice flat but eyes sharp. I nodded, my stomach twisting. "We have reason to believe your property is involved in unreported financial activity. May I come in?" My mind raced. Unreported activity? I paid my taxes, clipped coupons, lived modestly. What could they want with me? He handed me a letter, official and heavy with legalese, stating my property was under investigation for suspicious assets. I invited him in, more out of shock than choice, and he asked to inspect my backyard. That's when I followed him outside, watched him pace my lawn, and saw him point to a patch of disturbed earth near the old oak tree. "Mind if we dig?" he asked, but it wasn't a question. I grabbed a shovel, more to feel useful than anything else, and that's when I hit it. A gold bar, heavy and impossibly real, half buried like some pirate's treasure. My knees buckled. I didn't own gold. I didn't even own a decent lawnmower. But as the agent's radio crackled and he called for backup, my phone buzzed with a text from my younger brother, Jake. "Don't freak out, but we need to talk now." Jake and Matt, my brothers, are as different as fire and ice, but bound by a reckless streak I'd always envied and feared. Jake, 35, is the charming one, all quick smiles and leather jackets, always chasing the next big scheme. Matt, 37, is the planner, quiet but intense, with a mind that maps out every angle, except, apparently, the one where you tell your sister you're using her yard as a vault. They'd been distant lately, vague about their business ventures, and I'd let it slide. Family, I thought, was about trust. Now, trust was crumbling faster than the dirt under my shovel. The IRS agent, Agent Daniels, didn't blink at the gold bar. "There's likely more," he said, scribbling on his clipboard. "We'll need a full excavation." My heart pounded. Excavation? My yard, my sanctuary, where I'd planted tulips and dreamed of a quiet retirement, was now a federal investigation site. I texted Jake back, "What the hell did you do?" No reply. By noon, my backyard was a crime scene. Agents swarmed, cordoning off my lawn with yellow tape. Neighbors peeked over fences, whispering. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all I could do was stand there, clutching that IRS letter like a lifeline. Matt finally called, his voice low and urgent. "Ellen, don't say anything to them. We're coming over." They arrived an hour later, Jake's truck screeching into my driveway. Jake bounded out, all nervous energy, while Matt followed, his flannel shirt wrinkled, eyes avoiding mine. "We can explain," Jake started, but Agent Daniels cut him off, holding up another gold bar, dirt still clinging to its edges. "Care to explain this?" he asked, voice like steel. I stared at my brothers, the men I'd grown up with, shared Christmases and secrets with, and felt a betrayal so deep it burned. They'd used me, my home, my life, as a hiding place for their greed. But worse, they'd dragged me into a mess that could cost me everything. My house, my job, my future. "Start talking," I said, my voice shaking, "or I let these agents tear you apart." Jake ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "It was a one-time thing, Ellen. A guy we know, he had these bars, needed a safe spot. We didn't think it'd come to this." Matt nodded, finally meeting my eyes. "We thought we were protecting you by not telling you. The less you knew, the better." "Protecting me?" I laughed, bitter and hollow. "You buried gold in my yard. The IRS is here, Matt. They think I'm a criminal." Agent Daniels watched us, his silence louder than any accusation. I could feel my life unraveling, thread by thread, and my brothers stood there, acting like this was just another mess they could charm their way out of. The day blurred into chaos. Agents dug up 6 more bars, each one a heavier weight on my conscience. I didn't know where the gold came from, but I knew my brothers weren't innocent. Jake's guy was probably some shady dealer, and Matt's planning meant they'd known the risks. Yet they'd chosen my yard, my trust, to gamble with. As the sun set, casting long shadows over my ruined lawn, Agent Daniels approached me. "Miss Carter, we'll need your full cooperation. If you're not involved, you need to prove it." "Prove it? How do you prove you didn't know your own brothers were burying secrets in your soil?" I looked at Jake and Matt, their faces pale under the dying light, and made a choice. I wasn't going down with them. "I'll tell you everything I know," I said, my voice steady for the first time all day. "But you need to understand, I didn't ask for this." They did. Jake's eyes widened, and Matt's jaw tightened, but I didn't care. They'd betrayed me, and now I'd fight to save myself, even if it meant turning against the only family I had left. The kitchen table felt like a battlefield, my brothers on one side, me on the other, and the weight of betrayal thick as smoke. Jake leaned forward, his voice low, pleading. "Ellen, we didn't mean for this to blow up. You've got to believe us." "Believe you?" I snapped, my hands trembling as I gripped a mug of cold coffee. "You turned my home into a crime scene, Jake. You and Matt made me a target." Matt sat silent, his fingers tracing the grain of the table, guilt etched into every line of his face. Outside, the IRS agents were still cataloging evidence, their radios crackling through my open window. Agent Daniels had given me a choice: cooperate fully or risk being seen as an accomplice. I wasn't a fool. I knew my brothers' business ventures had always skirted the law. Growing up, I'd watched them charm their way out of speeding tickets, bar fights, and shady deals. But this? Gold bars buried in my yard. This was a new level of reckless, and I was the one paying the price. Matt finally spoke, his voice steady but heavy. "The gold came from a guy named Victor. He's connected. We owed him a favor, and he needed a safe place to stash it." I stared, incredulous. Connected? That was code for dangerous, and they brought that danger to my doorstep. "Why my yard?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why not yours, Jake? Or some random field?" Jake looked away, his jaw tight. Matt answered, "Your place was neutral. No one would suspect a teacher's house. We thought it'd be temporary." "Temporary?" I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "The IRS is tearing up my lawn, Matt. My neighbors think I'm a drug lord. This isn't temporary. This is my life." The room fell silent, the weight of my words sinking in. For the first time, I saw fear in Jake's eyes, not the usual cocky glint. Agent Daniels knocked and entered, his clipboard now a familiar menace. "Ms. Carter, we've recovered 10 bars so far, valued at roughly $800,000. We need to know the source. If you're not forthcoming, we'll assume you're protecting someone." His eyes flicked to my brothers, and I felt a surge of anger, not at him, but at them. "I don't know the source," I said, meeting his gaze. "But they do." I pointed at Jake and Matt, my heart pounding. Jake stood, hands raised. "Ellen, come on, don't do this. We're family. Family." The word stung, a reminder of the trust they'd shattered. Matt leaned forward, his voice urgent. "Victor's not someone you cross, Ellen. If we talk, he'll come after us. Maybe you too." The threat hung heavy, but I wasn't backing down. "You should have thought of that before you dug up my yard," I said. "I'm not going to jail for you." Agent Daniels scribbled something, then looked at me. "If you're willing to testify, we can offer protection. But you need to give us everything: names, dates, details." Protection. The word felt like a lifeline, but also a chain. I'd be trading one danger for another, all because my brothers thought they could play me for a fool. I thought of our childhood, Jake teaching me to ride a bike, Matt helping with my math homework when I struggled. They'd been my heroes once, but heroes don't bury secrets in your backyard. They don't risk your life for their gain. "I'll do it," I said, my voice firm. "I'll testify." Jake cursed under his breath, pacing like a caged animal. Matt just stared at the table, his shoulders slumped. I wanted to feel sorry for them, but all I felt was rage. They'd made their choices, and now I had to make mine. By evening, the agents had set up a command post in my living room, laptops and papers cluttering my coffee table. They questioned me for hours, and I told them what little I knew. Jake's vague texts, Matt's cryptic calls, their sudden distance over the past year. I didn't know Victor, but I gave them every detail I could remember about my brother's recent behavior. It wasn't much, but it was enough to shift the focus off me. As night fell, I stood at my window, watching the agents pack up for the day. My yard was a mess of dirt and tape, my tulips trampled. Jake and Matt were still in my kitchen, under temporary supervision, until the agents decided their next move. I wanted them gone, but I also wanted answers. Who was Victor? How deep were they in? And why, after everything we'd been through, did they think I'd just accept this? I turned to Matt, who looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Tell me the truth, I said. All of it. Or I swear, I'll let the IRS take you down without a fight. He nodded, slow and resigned, and started talking. Victor, he said, was a dealer in rare metals, with ties to people you didn't cross. The gold was payment for a deal gone wrong, and my yard was their desperate attempt to keep it hidden. I listened, my heart sinking with every word. This wasn't just about gold. It was about greed, fear, and a family I thought I knew. As Matt spoke, I realized this was only the beginning. The IRS was here, Victor was out there, and I was caught in the middle, fighting for a life I'd worked so hard to build. The next morning, my house felt like a prison. Yellow tape still crisscrossed my yard, and an IRS van idled in my driveway, a constant reminder of the chaos my brothers had unleashed. I hadn't slept, my mind replaying Matt's confession. Victor, the gold, the deal gone wrong. It wasn't just their recklessness, it was the betrayal that cut deepest. Jake was sprawled on my couch, pretending to sleep, while Matt sat at the kitchen table, staring at his hands. Agent Daniels had left a junior agent to monitor them, a young woman named Agent Torres who watched us with quiet intensity. I made coffee, more for something to do than because I wanted it, and tried to piece together my next move. We need to get out of here, Jake muttered, sitting up. His eyes darted to the window, where another agent was photographing my lawn. Victor's gonna find out the feds are sniffing around. He's not the forgiving type. I glared at him. You don't get to make plans, Jake. You lost that right when you turned my yard into a vault. Matt looked up, his voice low. He's right about Victor, Ellen. If he thinks we talked, he'll come for us. All of us. The fear in his voice was real, and for a moment, I felt it too. A cold, creeping dread. But I pushed it down. I wasn't the one who'd made deals with criminals. Then you better start giving the IRS something useful, I said. Because I'm not running, and I'm not hiding. Agent Torres overheard, stepping closer. Ms. Carter, if there's a credible threat, we need to know. Who is this Victor? I looked at my brothers, waiting for them to speak, but Jake just shook his head, and Matt stayed silent. I sighed, turning to Torres. Victor's some kind of dealer, rare metals, maybe more. That's all they've told me. They buried his gold here to hide it. Torres nodded, jotting notes. We'll run the name, but we need more. If you're all in danger, witness protection could be an option. Witness protection. The words hit like a punch. Leave my home, my job, my life. All because my brothers couldn't resist a quick score? I stepped outside, needing air, and found Agent Daniels overseeing the excavation. My yard was a war zone. Holes everywhere, my tulip bulbs scattered like casualties. How much longer? I asked, my voice raw. He glanced up, not unkindly. We're almost done. But Ms. Carter, if you're clean, you need to distance yourself from your brothers. Fast. Distance myself. Easier said than done when your family's all you've got. Our parents died when I was 20, leaving me to hold us together. I'd been the responsible one. The one who paid bills and planned funerals while Jake chased dreams and Matt calculated risks. Now, those risks had buried us all. Back inside, I confronted my brothers again. Victor's name is out there now, I said. The IRS knows. If you don't come clean, they'll assume you're protecting him, and I'm not going down with you. Jake stood, pacing. You don't get it, Ellen. Victor's got people everywhere. If we talk, we're dead. Then why drag me into this? I shouted, my voice echoing in the quiet house. You could have picked anywhere, but you chose my home. What? Matt's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw shame. Because we trusted you, he said. We thought if it came to it, you'd have our backs. I laughed, a broken sound. You didn't trust me. You used me. The room fell silent, the truth hanging heavy. Agent Torres cleared her throat. Miss Carter, we need a decision. Are you with us, or are you with them? I looked at my brothers, Jake's desperate eyes, Matt's defeated slump, and felt the weight of a lifetime of loyalty. But loyalty wasn't enough anymore. I'm with you, I told Torres. Whatever it takes to clear my name. Jake cursed, and Matt buried his face in his hands, but I didn't waver. I'd lost my yard, my peace, and nearly my future. I wouldn't lose my integrity, too. By afternoon, the IRS had taken my brothers into custody for questioning. They weren't under arrest. Not yet, but the sight of them being led to a van, hands uncuffed but heads bowed, tore at me. I wanted to hate them, but all I felt was grief. Grief for the brothers I thought I knew, for the family we'd once been. Agent Daniels stayed behind, handing me a card. If Victor contacts you, call me. Day or night. I nodded, tucking the card into my pocket. Alone in my house, I walked to the backyard, staring at the wreckage. The gold was gone, but the questions remained. Who was Victor, really? And what would he do when he learned his gold was in federal hands? That night, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A man's voice, low and calm, said, Ellen Carter? You don't know me, but I know your brothers. We need to talk about my property. My blood ran cold. Victor. He'd found me already. Victor's voice was smooth, almost polite, but it carried a menace that made my skin crawl. I don't want trouble, Ellen, he said. But your brothers made a mess. Meet me tomorrow, noon, at the diner on 5th. Come alone. The line went dead before I could respond. I stood frozen in my kitchen, the phone trembling in my hand. As the reality sank in, I was now a target. I called Agent Daniels immediately, my voice shaking as I relayed the call. He was calm, methodical, instructing me to forward the number and stay put. We'll trace it, he said. Don't go to that diner. We'll handle this. But as I hung up, I felt no relief. My brothers were in custody. My yard was a federal crime scene, and now a man I'd never met was pulling me into his world. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of my old house sounded like footsteps, every shadow a threat. I kept Daniel's card on my nightstand, checking my phone for updates that never came. By morning, my nerves were raw, and my anger at Jake and Matt burned hotter than ever. They'd known Victor was dangerous, yet they'd gambled with my safety. Agent Torres arrived at 8 a.m., her face all business. We couldn't trace the call, she admitted. Burner phone, likely, but we're setting up surveillance at the diner. If Victor shows, we'll grab him. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. What did Victor want? The gold was gone, seized by the IRS. Did he think I had it? Or was this about revenge? I spent the morning pacing, replaying every moment of the past 2 days. The gold bars, the IRS, my brother's betrayal. It all felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. At 11 a.m., Daniels called. We're in position at the diner. Stay home, Ellen. We've got this. But staying home felt like waiting for a guillotine to drop. I needed to do something, anything, to reclaim control. Against my better judgment, I grabbed my keys and drove to the police station where Jake and Matt were being held. I needed answers, not just for the IRS, but for me. The station was cold, fluorescent lights buzzing as I was led to a small room where Matt sat, handcuffed to a table. Jake was in another room, they said, but Matt was the one I wanted. He'd always been the planner, the one who knew the stakes. Ellen, he said, his voice hoarse. You shouldn't be here. I sat across from him, ignoring the guard by the door. Victor called me, Matt. He wants to meet. What the hell have you dragged me into? His eyes widened, fear flickering. You didn't agree to meet him, did you? No, I said, but I need to know who he is. What he wants. You owe me that. Matt leaned back, his cuffs clinking. Victor's not just a dealer. He's got connections, cartels, maybe worse. The gold was his way of laundering money. We were supposed to hold it, move it later. But Jake got greedy, thought we could skim some. I stared, my heart sinking. Skim some? You stole from a cartel. Matt nodded, shame in his eyes. We didn't think he'd notice. But he did. That's why we hid it at your place, thought it'd buy us time. Time. They'd traded my safety for time, and now Victor was circling. I left the station, my mind spinning. Matt's confession confirmed what I'd feared. This wasn't just about gold. It was about power, greed, and a man who wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted. I called Daniels again, telling him everything Matt had said. Cartel ties change things, he said. We're escalating this to the FBI. Stay safe, Ellen. Safe. The word felt like a cruel joke. I drove home, checking my rearview mirror for tails, my paranoia growing with every mile. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw a black SUV parked across the street, tinted windows hiding whoever was inside. My heart raced. Was it Victor? His people? I locked my doors and called Daniels, who promised a patrol car within minutes. The wait was agonizing. I hid in my bedroom, curtains drawn, listening for any sound. When the patrol car arrived, the SUV was gone, but the fear lingered. I was no longer just a bystander. I was in the crosshairs. My brothers had turned my life into a chessboard, and I was a pawn in a game I didn't understand. That night, I sat down and wrote a letter to Jake and Matt, not to send, but to make sense of my anger. I poured out my hurt, the memories of our childhood, the trust I'd placed in them, the life they'd endangered. Writing it felt like carving out a piece of my heart, but it also gave me clarity. I couldn't save them from themselves, but I could save me. By dawn, I'd made a plan. I'd cooperate fully with the IRS and FBI, give them every detail, and if it came to it, testify against my brothers. It wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. Victor was out there, and my brothers had left me to face him. But I wasn't helpless. Not anymore. The FBI took over my house like it was a command center. Agents in dark jackets moved with purpose, setting up cameras and tapping my phone. Agent Daniels introduced me to Agent Kessler, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense tone. We're treating Victor as a high-priority target, she said. If he's tied to cartels, this is bigger than tax evasion. I nodded, feeling like I was drowning in a world I didn't belong to. My kitchen, once filled with the smell of baking bread, now reeked of coffee and tension. Kessler sat me down, her questions relentless. When did your brothers first mention Victor? Any names, places, anything specific? I told her everything. Matt's confession, Jake's vague texts, the black SUV. She listened, her pen flying across her notebook, but I could tell she wanted more. They didn't tell me much, I admitted. They thought keeping me in the dark would protect me. Kessler's eyes softened, just for a moment. That's what family does sometimes. Thinks silence is safety. But it's not. You're doing the right thing by talking. Was I? Every word I gave the FBI felt like a nail in my brother's coffin. Jake and Matt were still in custody, and I hadn't seen them since the station. Part of me wanted to visit, to demand more answers, but another part couldn't face them. Not yet. Not when I was still reeling from Victor's call. That afternoon, Kessler showed me a photo, a grainy image of a man in his 50s, silver hair, sharp suit, stepping out of a car. This is Victor Ruiz, she said. Recognize him? I shook my head, my stomach churning. He looked ordinary, like someone's uncle, but his eyes were cold, calculating. He's dangerous, Ellen. If he contacts you again, you tell us immediately. I nodded, but the fear was back, sharper now. Victor wasn't just a voice on the phone. He was real, and he was coming for what he thought was his. The FBI set up a safe house option, but I refused. This was my home, my life. I wouldn't let my brothers or Victor take that from me. Days passed in a blur of anxiety. My school gave me leave, citing personal reasons, but I knew the whispers were spreading. Neighbors avoided me, their glances heavy with judgment. My yard was still cordoned off, a constant reminder of the mess I was in. I tried to focus on normalcy, grading papers, watering what was left of my plants, but nothing felt normal. Then, on the fourth day, a package arrived. No return address, just a small box left on my porch. My hands shook as I called Kessler, who sent a team immediately. They opened it under controlled conditions. Inside was a single gold bar, smaller than the others, with a note. Return what's mine, or you'll regret it. My knees gave out. Victor wasn't just watching. He was taunting me. Kessler's team swept my house for bugs, finding nothing, but the note changed everything. He's escalating, she said. We're moving you to a safe house tonight. I protested, but she was firm. You're not safe here, Ellen. Not anymore. Reluctantly, I packed a bag, my heart breaking as I left my home behind. The tulips I'd planted, the life I'd built, It all felt like a distant memory. The safe house was a sterile apartment in a neighboring town, all beige walls and generic furniture. Kessler stayed with me, her presence both comforting and oppressive. "We're close to nailing Victor," she said. "Your brothers are talking. We just need a little more time." Time. The one thing I felt I was running out of. That night, I dreamed of my brothers, Jake's laugh as we played tag as kids, Matt's quiet pride when I graduated college. But the dream twisted, their faces morphing into Victor's, his cold eyes promising revenge. I woke up sweating, Kessler's voice on the phone pulling me back. "We've got a lead," she said. "Victor's meeting a contact tomorrow. We're setting a trap." A trap. The word sent a shiver through me. I was part of it now, whether I wanted to be or not. I thought of my brothers, locked away, and wondered what they were saying. Were they protecting me, or saving themselves? The line between love and betrayal was blurring, and I wasn't sure where I stood anymore. By morning, Kessler outlined the plan. They'd use me as bait, not in person, but through a staged call, luring Victor to a location where the FBI could grab him. I agreed, my voice steady despite the fear. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about ending the nightmare my brothers had started. As I recorded the call script, my hands steadying with purpose, I realized something. I wasn't just a victim. I was fighting back. For my home, my life, and the truth. Victor might have thought he could scare me, but he didn't know me. Neither did my brothers. Not anymore. The FBI's plan was simple but terrifying. I'd call Victor, pretending to negotiate the return of his gold, while agents tracked his location. Kessler coached me through the script, her voice calm but firm. "Keep him talking," she said. "He's smart, but he's arrogant. That's our edge." I nodded, my throat tight, as I held the phone they'd rigged for tracing. The call went through on the first ring. "Ellen," Victor's voice purred, all false warmth. "I was wondering when you'd come to your senses." I swallowed, gripping the script. "I don't want trouble," I said, my voice shaking but convincing. "I'll give you the gold. Just leave me alone." He laughed, a sound that chilled me. "Smart girl. Meet me tonight. Old warehouse on 12th. Bring the bars." "There's no gold," I said, sticking to the script. "The IRS took it, but I know where my brothers hid more." It was a lie, but Kessler had insisted it would hook him. Victor paused, then said, "You're playing a dangerous game, Ellen. 8 p.m., don't disappoint me." The line went dead, and I exhaled, my hands trembling. Kessler gave me a nod. "Good. We've got his location." The warehouse was a trap, rigged with FBI agents and surveillance. I wouldn't be there. Kessler had made that clear, but knowing Victor was walking into it didn't ease my fear. What if he slipped through? What if he knew it was a setup? My brothers had already underestimated him, and I couldn't afford to. While the FBI prepared, I was stuck in the safe house, pacing the beige carpet. Kessler had left an agent with me, a young man named Carter who tried to make small talk. "You're doing great," he said, but I barely heard him. My mind was on Jake and Matt, still in custody, and the choices that had led us here. I'd always thought family was unbreakable, but now I saw the cracks, greed, secrecy, and a reckless trust in each other that had left me exposed. By evening, Kessler called with an update. "Victor's at the warehouse. We're moving in." I sat on the couch, clutching a pillow, waiting for news. Hours passed, each minute stretching into eternity. Finally, at midnight, Kessler returned, her face grim but triumphant. "We got him," she said. "Victor Ruiz is in custody. Your brother's testimony helped seal it." Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. "What about Jake and Matt?" I asked. Kessler hesitated. "They're cooperating, but they're not off the hook. Money laundering, conspiracy, there'll be charges. You need to prepare for that." I nodded, my heart heavy. I'd saved myself, but at what cost? The next day, I was allowed to see my brothers. The station's visiting room was cold, the air thick with regret. Jake looked haggard, his usual charm gone. Matt sat beside him, eyes red. "Ellen," Jake started, but I cut him off. "Don't. Just tell me why you thought this was okay. Why you thought I'd just take it." Matt spoke first. "We were in deep with Victor. He threatened us. Our lives, yours. Hiding the gold was our way out." Jake nodded. "We thought we could fix it before you found out. We were wrong." Their words were sincere, but they didn't erase the damage. My home, my trust, my sense of safety gone. I'm testifying, I said, my voice steady. Not just for the FBI, but for me. You need to face what you did. Jake's eyes filled with tears, and Matt looked away, but I didn't soften. They'd made their choices, and I was done paying for them. Back at the safe house, I started rebuilding. The FBI promised to repair my yard, and my school agreed to let me return once the investigation wrapped up. But the scars weren't just in the dirt, they were in me. I'd lost the brothers I thought I knew, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever get them back. As I packed to leave the safe house, Kessler handed me a letter from Matt, written from custody. Ellen, it read, "We never meant to hurt you. You're the best of us. I'm sorry we broke that." I folded it, tears stinging my eyes. Sorry wasn't enough, but it was a start. Victor's arrest made the news, a small story buried in the local paper. I read it, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The gold was gone, the danger was over, but the cost was still unfolding. I'd fought for my life, and I'd won, but the victory felt hollow without my family whole. I returned to my house a week later, the FBI's presence finally gone. The yard was patched, but the scars remained. Uneven dirt where my tulips once grew, a reminder of the secrets buried beneath. I stood there, the morning sun warm on my face, and tried to reclaim the peace I'd lost. It wasn't easy. Every creak of the fence, every stranger's car, sent my heart racing. Victor was in custody, but fear has a way of lingering. The trial loomed, a dark cloud on the horizon. Jake and Matt had plea deals, their testimony against Victor reducing their sentences. They'd likely serve time, maybe years, but they'd avoided the worst. I'd agreed to testify, too, not out of spite, but necessity. The truth was my only weapon, and I wielded it for myself, not them. I visited them one last time before the trial. The visiting room felt less oppressive now, maybe because I'd made peace with my role. Jake tried to joke, his old charm flickering. "You gonna plant new tulips, Elle?" I smiled, despite myself. "Maybe, but no more secrets in my yard." Matt reached for my hand, his cuffs clinking. "We'll make this right," he said. I wanted to believe him, but trust was a bridge we'd have to rebuild slowly. Back home, I started small, replanting my garden, grading papers, answering colleagues' cautious questions. The neighbors still whispered, but I held my head high. I wasn't the criminal here, and I'd proved it. The IRS cleared my name, and the FBI assured me Victor's network was unraveling. But closure wasn't a neat bow. It was a process, one I was still navigating. One evening, I found an old photo in a drawer, me, Jake, and Matt at a family picnic, laughing under a summer sky. I traced their faces, remembering the love that had once bound us. They'd betrayed me, yes, but they were still my brothers. I didn't know if we'd ever be whole again, but I wasn't ready to give up on them. Not entirely. I wrote them a letter, not to forgive, but to acknowledge. "You broke my trust," I wrote, "but you're still my family. When you're out, we'll talk. Not about gold or Victor, but about us." I mailed it, feeling lighter, like I'd planted a seed of hope in the wreckage. The trial came and went, a blur of lawyers and testimony. Victor was convicted, money laundering, racketeering, the list went on. My brothers got 2 years each, a sentence I didn't celebrate but accepted. I testified with clarity, my voice steady, and when I left the courtroom, I felt free. Not from them, but from the weight of their choices. Months later, I stood in my yard, new tulips blooming under the oak tree. The dirt was smooth now, no secrets buried beneath. I'd learned to live with the scars, to find strength in the fight. My brothers had gambled with my life, but I'd won it back. And in the quiet of that morning, with the sun rising and the world steady beneath my feet, I knew I was enough. The IRS never returned, and Victor's name faded from my nightmares. My brothers would be out someday, and we'd face what came next. But for now, I was Ellen Carter, teacher, sister, survivor. My yard was mine again, and so was my story. I'd write the ending, not them.